back with Bob Goldstein, singer-songwriter, who's played everywhere from the streets of San Francisco to 10,000-seat arenas. He's been an opening act for some of the big times. I'm going to read here: Stephen Stills, America, Tom Waits, Air Supply, Jerry Garcia, the list goes on. He's also had deals with 20th Century Fox to write feature films, and he's sort of a third career as a technology entrepreneur, founder of a couple of companies, and but all the time it's been a lot about the music. And we talked in an earlier segment about some of the professional inspirations, some of the music business inspirations that you had. We've talked about being on the road and some of the performances that you've done in the different genres, and we've heard a little bit of taste of that. But I also know that your inspiration is also your personal life and your friendship and your relationships.
Exactly. Yeah. That's right, and you know, where songs come from is always a mystery. You know, why you write a song, and if you're not writing a song for hire, which, you know, people write songs for specific purposes, and sometimes that's a good thing. But if you're just kind of writing them from an inspirational point of view, you never know where that's going to come from. So, you know, sometimes it comes from a happy place, and sometimes not. So in this particular song that we're going to sing in a minute here, this came from the death of a very good friend of mine, somebody that I'd known since grade school, really, and had played music with since we were in 7th grade together. And, you know, it's interesting because while the music was something that bonded us together early in life, with several of my friends, and this guy's one of them, music continued to be the bond. And I'm from Chicago. He lived in Chicago for his whole life. And I have several of my friends that go back to those days that are still there. Whenever I go back to Chicago, we always get together and play music to this very day. And so I got a phone call completely out of the blue from his wife, who's a good friend of mine, telling me that my friend Chris had passed away. And it was really a shock. It was a big shock, and for many reasons. And at that point, I was actually recuperating. I had a hip replacement at that point. And so I couldn't go back to Chicago for the funeral, and I felt very badly about that. And I was trying to think of, what can I do? You know, send flowers? No, I don't want to send flowers. So not unlike when I wrote Art in Hard Times, when you asked for a paragraph, I thought, well, let me write a song for Chris, because you know, that was really the language that we had together, and he was a huge music fan his whole life, and a very, very good musician as well. So so this song really came from the heart. I wanted to do something for him and send it to his family, which I did. But it was an unusual writing exercise as well, because it literally, the first verse of the song actually tells the story exactly the way it played out when I first got the news. So, and this was the song I mentioned to you earlier that I wrote walking my dog, because I was in therapy for my hip. And I'd come up with some of the lyrics, I'd come up with the music, and I needed to continue to write the song, and that was the best thing for me. I would take long walks down the LA River with my dog, and because I had the tune in my mind, I would just run it over and over again, and it was a Zen exercise in writing, and it was really, you know, from that point of view, it was therapeutic for me on a number of different levels, and you know, it's one of those songs that will always be very close to my heart.
Tell us the title.
It's called Rose Light. His name was Chris Rose, and so his light continues, and that's all in the song. Claire's on the phone. She never calls. I ask what's wrong, she cries. You've passed and gone, and I thought you'd always be there, holding on forever. Thought you'd always be there to hold that fort together. You're sudden in, my dear old friend, leaves me alone, cut off from home, and I thought you'd always be there, rolling on forever. thought you'd always be there to ride those roads together. But we all come and we all go till our bright light fades down to a glow. And the things that we say, all those things that we do, become these memories of you. Those songs we sang, those chords that rang, your voice so true, we'd blend with you, and I thought you'd always be there to sing those songs forever. Thought you'd always be there, sing those chords together. Thought you'd always be there, ride those roads forever. Thought you'd always be there, forever. Thought you'd always be there.
That's one that always gives me the chills.
Me too.
You know, I think about the friends that we've had and lost over the years, and Steve Henschel comes to mind,
Yep.
and other folks.
And again, you know, music was my bond with him. You know, music is my bond with so many of my friends.
Yeah.
So,
Well, I think it is for all of us. I mean, even if you're not singing and composing, I also think that there's memories that are associated with music that you associate with friends or family of past.
absolutely, absolutely. And that's the other thing about that song. After I wrote it, I just thought to myself, well, it really conjures up memories of so many people in my life. And when I played it for people, it conjures up those memories for them too. And that's, you know, that's the essence of why you write a song. You know,
Sure.
you don't write it just for yourself. You
Yeah.
really write it for other people, and you really want to hear back from people that you know, it's touched them or moved them, or you know, it meant something to them.
Well, it has the power of music. It sort of lives in a special place in your brain and in your heart.
Absolutely.
Even neurologically, I think.
Absolutely, it does. It does. I mean, you know, for me, even singing and playing for you now, you know, you know, you go to a place, you go to an emotional place, and you know, I always think about it. You know, even when I was was running businesses, or when I was a screenwriter, for example, I always had a guitar in my writing room. In fact, it was funny, at 20th Century Fox, I had an office, and I had a guitar in there, and it was a little guitar that you could plug into a headphone amp. And so when I needed to take a break, I would plug into this headphone amp and go, you know, to some other place. Well, people found out that I had this in my office, and so people would come in, and I'd be working, and they'd just come in, and they sit in the chair, put the headphones on, and they would go to that place. And I got to tell you, that was fantastic. So,
I think it's kind of a writer's secret, you know.
Yeah.
I did the same thing, is that if I wanted to evoke a certain emotion, I'd put on a piece of music, and I knew, as a writing exercise.
Exactly.
So I knew, because I knew it would take me to the place I needed to be to write that scene.
That's right, and there's nothing else. You know, music, you can do other things while you're involved with music. You know, it's not like watching a movie where it takes you out of where you are.
Right.
You can stay where you are or be in that same environment and then click back into where you are. So, and that's all. I'll tell you. You know, most musicians will tell you that most of us start out when we're kids, and I started out. You know, when I was about 13 years old, I started playing in my room. And that was what it was all about, was practicing in my room, practicing over and over and over again. But you go to that place. You go to that place. And, you know, it's always been a very safe place, let's put it that way.
Well, talking about expressing emotions through music and composing, you know, there's all kinds of emotions. There's emotions about relationships, and there's emotions about your work or your frustrations. But there's also emotions about the society and what the hell's going on in the world, which I know affects you as it does with me.
Absolutely. Well, you know, for me, you know, the first song that I played, you know, was really about, you know, the noise is deafening. You know, this cacophony that we're all, you know, kind of trying to figure out how to deal with media everywhere and 24-hour news cycle and all the rest of it. And so this next song is called Way Out West, and if you think about it, so the hook is, where are you going to go when you're already way out west? It's like, you know, you've gotten as far away from whatever you're running from or that you want to get away from, there's no place else to go. And I think that's what a lot of us are thinking now. It's like, there's no where can I go?
Well, it's the old thing about people went from Europe to New York and then
Yeah.
East Coast and then they went to
Yeah.
California
Yeah.
and then you hit it.
Exactly.
There's nowhere else to
Exactly.
go. You're already way out.
No,
west.
that's exactly what it is. In fact, when I used to do this, we do this live, and I'll say to people, how many of you are, from California, and
Yeah.
how many of you are from someplace else, because you came out here exactly, and this is it, man. This is the edge of the world.
the end.
And I think I wrote this long before the NSA scandal or anything, but people are really concerned about these
You're talking
kinds of
about the
things.
National Security Agency bugging of.
Yeah, the bugging of everybody and not having privacy and so while it's not it's not a heavy message or anything like that, but that's what infused it. It was like a that uneasy feeling of
Yeah.
the fact that things are going in a direction that you don't have much control over. I think
Yeah.
that's really what it's about. So so in that case, and again, this one is kind of an up-tempo song. So I was writing something up-tempo that people could actually have fun listening to, but the lyrics have a darker side.
Bit of
Let's
an
put it
edge,
that
huh?
way.
So this is called.
This is called Way Out West. Tom, you're the lookout. Come see that we're safe. Keep your eyes open, they're on their way. Find days of freedom now, these might be our last. Look to the future, hey, I just see the past. Where we gonna go when we're already way out west? Where we gonna go when we're already way out west? Where we gonna go when we're already way out west? Line that's never busy is busy today. The whole world is calling with their fears and their pain. You get through, you gotta tell me now, what did they say? 'Cause I need some good news from far away. And where we gonna go when we're already way out west? Where we gonna go when we're already way out west? Where we gonna go when we're already way out west? Fingers are pointing, I just have to laugh. 4 stars are building another garden path. Shoes gonna drop, real rain's gonna fall. Some will get nothing, while some get it all. Tom, you're the lookout, come see that we're safe. Keep your eyes open, they're on their way. Find days of freedom now, these might be our last. Look to the future, hey, I just see the past. But where we gonna go when we're already way out west? Where we gonna go when we're already way out west? Where we gonna go when we're already way out west?
Way out west, where are you gonna go?
There's no place left.
So, I was thinking that there's always been like a political strain in music, hasn't there, in America, like beginning with Woody Guthrie, really, and then sort of picked up Dylan and.
Well, Dylan and all, folk music,
Yeah.
when you think about it, and the union movement back in the day had lots
Right,
of songs,
right.
Joe Hill, and there's a great tradition, and some is more subtle than others.
Sure.
Messengers
Phil
of-
Oakes, by the way, used to be
Phil
one of
Oakes?
my favorites. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, yeah.
he was really the guy that kind of went out there and just put it right in your face.
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
I ain't much
But that actually kind of morphed into rock. It morphed into urban music. It's continued, really, hasn't it?
Right. Well, I mean, you know, a lot of people would definitely say that, you know, certainly rap music. And
Yeah.
There's lots of there's politics everywhere in music now.
Yeah,
You know.
yeah.
That's why I think, you know, people always go back to Dylan, and that's a good thing. When you listen to Subterranean Homesick Blues, I mean,
Right.
you know, I mean that really set things up. in
But it
many
was
different
interesting because most of American popular music was lighter stuff. I mean,
course.
if you think of the ragtime and then into the 30s and the Moon June croon kind of era, and then the 50s, pretty light stuff. But the Woody Guthrie's come out of a more grassroots American kind of populist movement, I guess you'd say.
Yeah, definitely, and of course you remember that was the Depression era, it was Dust Bowl
That's
era.
right.
So there was a lot going on, and
Yep.
you know, he wrote about the government, and he
Yeah.
wrote about, you know, he
Yeah.
was really one of the first people to really write. Like, Your Land is a perfect example,
Yeah,
right,
yeah.
of speaking truth to power.
And I guess the blues were personal, but they got political as we understood, you know, the terrible abuses of the civil rights and slavery.
That's
and
right.
all that.
That's
Yeah,
right. And
yeah.
you know, I mean, the blues you know, there's so many different ways to kind of look at the way that everything merged. You know, I mean, we
Yeah.
always talk about how things merged in the '60s, and they really did. You know, when you take those strands, you know, again, going back to my own roots in music, you know, I started out. When I'm starting out listening to the kind of white folkies,
Yeah.
that led me, all the way to the Deep South. You know,
Right.
we all bought those records and we all listened to those people, and a
Yep.
lot of those people were still alive at the time.
Yep.
So,
Yep. And never have gotten the recognition that they deserve.
no,
A lot of them.
no.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, you know, it was great that they were rediscovered at that time,
Yeah.
because many of them had not played out in public for many years, both
Yep.
black and white. I
Yeah.
mean, you know, you had the Clarence Ashley, you had the white, you know, kind of country guys, Doc Watson and all those guys who
Yeah.
were discovered in the Deep South.
Yeah.
And at the same time, you had, you know, Mississippi John Hurt and all those people.
Yep, Muddy Waters.
That were all rediscovered at that same time, that hadn't
Right.
played for a long time. And then
Right.
you had, and you know, you think about it, you know, you take Bob Dylan, and then, you know, he hears Muddy Waters.
Right.
You know, and you're going somewhere.
Yeah.
You know, you're going somewhere.
Yeah,
And so all of that stuff.
Well, and then there
infused
was
all of
like
us.
the Blues Project. I don't know if you remember them,
Of
but they were
course.
kind of a rockified blues.
Yeah, they were.
deal.
They were.
So-
And those guys, you know, all of those roots, a lot of that New York stuff, you know, cross-pollinated. You know,
Right.
there was a lot of urban guys, like some of the great bluegrass stuff came out of New York City, of all things. And
Yeah.
then there were
Well, Chicago
revivalists-
also.
And Chicago, yeah.
Yeah,
And there
yeah.
were revivalists like the New Lost City Ramblers, you
Yep.
know. And
Yep.
And so, man, the cross currents were just. Were everywhere,
Yeah.
you know. I mean,
Yeah.
and the reverberation of that is we're still feeling.
Well, let's
today.
talk about the music business a little bit and where it's gone. I mean, you know, in the '60s there was a real a kind of popular upheaval, almost grassroots, from a generation of folks, and then it became a even bigger
business. Then it became a business. You know,
Yeah.
The music business for most people and artists was not really a business. You know, it was a business for the businessmen. You know, if you
Yeah.
go back and read about that era, the people that made money were the businessmen, not the artists. You know?
Yeah.
And being a songwriter, of course, was disassociated from being an artist. You know, there was the Brill Building and, you know, all those people that were writing songs for artists.
Right.
And all of them were under
way back to
Carole King,
Gershwin,
Gary Goffin, and further. But
Yeah.
but in terms of the pop scene, so those writers were all under contract, right?
Yeah.
So they were working, in a way, they were working people, but they, you know, some of them made a lot of money because they had the publishing, but the artists, you know, didn't make any money. So
Right.
then things began to change. You know, you hear about it over and over again with whether it's the Beatles or you know, anybody in that stage. Nobody thought that they were going to make it like Elvis.
Yeah.
You know, I mean,
Yeah.
Elvis is really, that was the change.
Right.
That was the big change from
Yeah.
everybody. And of
Yeah.
course, talking about a mixture of country and blues,
Yeah.
it was Elvis, right?
Right.
So nobody really thought that they were going to be rich until Elvis came along.
Yeah.
And now it's kind of come full circle because, you know, if you talk to musicians that are starting out now,
Yeah.
it's so hard to make a living. And
Yeah,
the
well, I
technology
mean,
has
in the
changed things.
interim, I mean, there was a lot of big. I mean, back in the analog days, people are selling albums, they're making money off of that, and they're doing concerts, they're making money off of that. These days, you're not really making money off of your recordings.
That's right.
And no matter how big you are,
That's right.
especially if it's on Pandora 24/7 or stuff like
Exactly.
that. So
So it's kind of come full circle. You know, when I
Yeah.
talk to people now that are, I mean, when I made a living playing music, playing live. Right?
Yeah.
That was how I made my living, playing gigs.
Right.
And it's kind of come back to that now. People have to make a living. Or make money, maybe not even a living.
Yeah.
Playing music, it's playing gigs, it's selling your merchandise, it's
Right.
selling your CDs or whatever it is at the gig.
Yeah.
Because the other stuff, and you hear about it from the top to the bottom, the other stuff is just disappearing.
But isn't it tougher in a way because you could be playing on the streets in San Francisco, or you could be playing in a club, and an A&R guy could show up and sign you, and you know promote you and do that. But now with the digital, you don't have the A&R business so much anymore, right?
That's right. Everybody's doing it for themselves. They're putting up stuff on YouTube, or they're putting out their own albums, or they're putting out, or not even putting out a physical product at all.
Right,
They're
right.
just going right to the digital format. But how do you make a living doing
Yeah,
that? And
yeah.
and then the other cultural shift is, we were all. I mean, here's a big cultural shift for you. So when we were coming up, we couldn't wait for the next Beatle album to come out.
Right.
And everybody couldn't wait to buy it.
Yeah.
Right?
Right. Yeah.
You know, that's just not the case anymore.
Yeah.
You know, there's a few artists that we all know about that people will buy their thing, but
Yeah.
for everybody else, the value of music has been lost somewhere along the line.
Well, for a minute, put on your technology hat along with your music hat, and talk about you know what the future is going to be like. I mean, it's very hard to get through the clutter in the digital world and the internet with your music. You know, how we're going to sort this out?
Well, that's a good question. If I had the answer to that,
Yeah.
I'd be down there doing it right now.
Yeah.
Everybody's asking that same question, but I think one thing that is a great advantage, though, in terms of getting your music out, it's like, what is your purpose, right? Is your purpose
Right.
to get your music out? I mean, the good
Right.
news now is, like when I was coming up, you either had a record deal or you didn't, right? And very few people in those days were doing independent albums or anything like that. Now,
Right.
if you want to get your music out, if that's the purpose,
true.
you can do that, and people
Yeah.
are doing that. And you can discover people on YouTube, and you can discover them in so many different ways, and then go out and see them play live.
Right.
So, you know, I'm seeing people, and I'm talking to people these days who are out there doing it now, and it's really back to that. It's very difficult to figure out what the business plan is going to be,
Yeah,
and I haven't
yeah.
heard anybody that's really cracked the code on that yet.
Yeah.
You know,
Well, it may be in the long run good for the artists and not so good for the dinosaur record companies.
Well, that's for sure. But we're going to find out now whether or not you're going to try to make a living doing this. You know, that's what it comes back for me. I mean, it afforded me the ability to just do music during that whole period of time, and that was important to me at that time.
Yeah.
And I'm seeing people struggle with that. You know, I mean, you think about San Francisco as a great example. I've talked to people lately who have moved down here from San Francisco because it's impossible to afford to live there
Yeah.
and be an artist. You know,
Yeah.
and we've heard about this. New York is getting to be the same thing.
Oh, sure.
So where's the scene around which you grow your music? You don't do
Yeah.
it by yourself.
Right.
You know, you're always part of something.
Right.
Now that something is bigger now because people are touring internationally and they're putting
True.
themselves out on the road.
Right. And I think social media can be beneficial if you can use it to
Absolutely.
build a fan base.
Absolutely,
Yeah,
and people
yeah.
are definitely doing that.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
that was the other part of my life was the technology part of my life.
Yeah.
And I ended up founding a few companies, and all of having to do with digital media.
Yeah.
And so in a way, I feel responsible a little bit for some of the ideas that have come out, because we were, for example, as you know, I wrote a book, came out in 2005, called Going Visual, which was all about using images and digital
Right.
media. And then I started a company which was all about exchanging audio files and movie files and imaging files. And we were talking then about what the sharing economy was going to look like,
Right.
and how it was going to work,
Right.
and how to monetize it.
Right.
And that's been the hardest thing. You hear that term all the time, but I understand why. Monetizing things. You can get, these days, you can have 5 million followers on YouTube.
But how are
do you monetize that? How do you make a living doing
Well,
it?
speaking of money and the music industry and all that, you have a little song that you wrote about called
Right.
Long Bad Day.
A long bad day, yeah.
And
So
set us up on this
I'll
one.
set you up on this one. So, I read a quote from Lou Reed many years ago, in which he said that many of the love songs that musicians in the music business write are really, especially songs of heartbreak, are really about the music business. So
Yeah.
and I thought that was quite an insight.
That's good.
And so this song, you know, it kind of walks the line between being a very personal song, but it's really about, you know, when you start companies or when you go out and raise money or when you have a dream. I mean, you know, one of the things about my career in the digital imaging business and the digital world in particular was, you know, we created some companies that were very creative in terms of what they were trying to do. We were among the first ones to do apps for smartphones, and when people were saying, well, nobody's ever going to download an app for a smartphone. So it was very dear to my heart when I would go out and pitch these ideas, and so, you know.
So Long Bad Day is a little bit about the breakup.
A little bit about that, and a little personal as well. So. Do you mean to tell me that all this time you've had me strung out on some lightweight line? It's dawning on me in some small way that we've come to the end of a long bad day. You told me you were my friend, swore on your life to defend me. Now the hour's arrived to make good that pledge. Oh, I see I've come out on the short end. You know I won't make that mistake again. I don't know what you're thinking. I can't tell what you feel. I'm so knocked down and laid out, and I don't know what's real. But it's dawning on me in some small way that we've come to the end of a long bad day. You told me you were my friend, swore on your life to defend me. Now the hour's arrived to make good that pledge. Oh, I see I've come out on the short end. You know I won't make that mistake again. Stand up now and face me. Come and see what you've done. When I lay there sleeping, you left me on a dead run. But it's dawning on me in some small way that we've come to the end of a long bad day. You told me you were my friend, swore on your life to defend me. Now the hour's arrived to make good that pledge. Oh, I see I've come out on the short end. You know I won't make that mistake again. You know I won't make that mistake again. You know I won't make that mistake again.
Long bad day. This has been a short and good day, Bob.
Well, thanks, Roy.
Thanks so much. It's really a pleasure to have you. Thank you for it. Yeah, it's the best.